Hello and welcome to the Moms Who Know podcast. I'm your host, Chanel Nielsen, and I'm joined today by LeeAnne Mendenhall. LeeAnne, thanks for being on the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
Yeah, I think we have a lot of good stuff to talk about. I'm excited to dive in and to learn more from you. I was telling LeeAnne before the call, I read her book recently called, is it The Unlabeled Life or An Unlabeled Life? I can't remember how you worded it.
Just Unlabeled Life.
Unlabeled Life. I'm making it more complicated than it needs to be. Okay. Unlabeled Life. So we're going to talk a lot about that today. LeeAnne is a certified life coach, an author, an Academy member of the National Speakers Association, and she loves to work on these three words we're going to talk about today and help her audience to live a life of freedom, clarity, and purpose. So I think that's really exciting. And to start off, I want to learn a little bit more about you. I know that you've been through kind of a hard time with some physical challenges and family challenges and other things. So start off by telling us kind of your story and some of those struggles that you've been through.
Okay. The whole idea of living an unlabeled life came about because I hit my rock bottom. And I have, a little clip from a presentation from the National Speakers Association online that I, tell a little bit of my story. But basically, I had just been, there were a few contributing factors to this rock bottom that I hit. The first was that I had just come to the end of my first marriage. We had spent 12 years trying to make it work. And I mean, just from year one, it never did. And I was just kind of resigned to, okay, this is my life, I guess. I'll just stick it out. But then I got sick. I started having these shooting pains up my arms and just getting so exhausted. It didn't matter how much sleep I got. I couldn't get enough sleep. And I was simultaneously experiencing insomnia and crawling pains and burning pains and shooting pains. And it was only a few weeks later that I ended up just completely bedridden. And I was that way for 9 months. It was just the worst year of my life.
Wow.
And at the same time, during this kind of, my marriage had come to a tipping point and my health had deteriorated, I was also really questioning the religion that I was raised into and that I had been actively living. And it didn't feel right to me. It wasn't giving me the spiritual enlightenment that I needed for myself. And so it was just all of these things combining, and getting sick. I sometimes say it was the best thing that ever happened to me because it forced me to start taking care of myself. I love this quotation by J.K. Rowling, the author of Harry Potter world. She said, "Rock bottom became the solid foundation on which I rebuilt my life." And I definitely identify with that statement. I needed to hit rock bottom in order to wake up. It was my wake up call. I had to stop living my life for everybody else. Moms know this. We sometimes overcompensate for we lose ourselves, and you are the expert in that, you're parenting presently, but you definitely have to take care of yourself.
Right.
But my body, my emotional health, they were just deteriorating because of this immense stress I was living with this bad marriage and loss of my spiritual compass. And hitting rock bottom forced me to choose a better life for me and my children. And it also gave me this epiphany moment, and I talk about it in my book, where I'm sitting in this doctor's office and I've been in bed for 9 months and all the blood tests kept coming back within normal range and nobody knew what was wrong with me. And he tells me I have this rare form of arthritis called ankylosing spondylitis and also fibromyalgia along with that. And my first thought that popped into my head was, I can't have arthritis. I'm a dancer. I can't have arthritis. I am a dancer. And then my second thought was, what am I thinking? I haven't danced in 10 years. I haven't danced since college. Why did my first response to being told I have this horrible illness be, oh no, I've lost dance, even though I hadn't danced in forever. And it was then that I realized that I had labeled myself a dancer and had never moved on from that. And it made me go, oh my gosh, what else do I believe about myself that's not true? And so that's when I really discovered the power of labels and how even positive labels can hold you back.
Yeah, so that's a really interesting thought, because when you think about, I'm a dancer, that there's nothing inherently bad about that statement. It can be positive. It can sometimes, lead you on to better things. But why did this label, why is that a problem?
It's a problem because what most people don't realize is that these labels are a big influence in the process of forming our identity, and we alter our behavior to either reinforce a label or to reject it. I had a client that was just trying so hard to just be top salesman, top salesman, top salesman. And I go, why are you I said, you are making so much money. You are very talented. Why do you what drives you? What pushes you? And he goes, well, in high school, I dated this girl and I grew up poor, and she was from a rich family, and her family never thought I was good enough for her. And she eventually left me to go, date and marry this rich guy, because I didn't fit her standards, and I promised myself I would never be in that position again. So he had labeled himself as the poor kid who needed to prove something, and he was never enough. He never enjoyed his success because it was coming from this place of such negativity. And so we had to change his labels, alter his labels so that he could actually enjoy his success.
It's really interesting. I think that is kind of a big part of where the value in life coaching comes in, is to help you, identify and then go back and kind of realize where all this comes from and why you're doing what you're doing, and kind of get to the heart of that, because it's awesome. He was a top salesman. That's a wonderful thing. He was successful, but at what cost? And then, to your point, he still didn't feel like he was enough. Mm-hmm. And that's where the problem comes in, because that label was holding him back, right?
Exactly. And he didn't change anything about his lifestyle except that label. And all of a sudden, he started becoming happy and satisfied with his life and able to enjoy the fruits of his labor and his success. And never, he stopped feeling like it was never enough, like he had to prove something. Oh, you've proved it. You're good. You can stop now. You can
be done.
You can move on and do something else because you're done. You are successful.
Now, in that example, someone else had said something to him and kind of given him that label. Where else do labels come from? I mean, they can be explicitly stated by other people, but where else are we getting these?
Well, our family gives us our first labels. You're labeled a picky eater, a fussy baby, a pretty girl, a strong boy, a tomboy. You're shy, you're hyper, you're whatever it is. Your family are the ones that label you first. And we don't mean it to be a mean thing. We're just talking, it's not purposeful that I am going to label my child a picky eater. And for the next 10 years, he's not going to try new foods because he believes in his heart he's a picky eater. That's not our purpose. That's not what we do on purpose. But then, outside influences come in. Friends and schoolmates add their own labels. Some are negative from bullies. Some are positive from friends. We are so ensconced in trying to be loved and accepted and validated that we soak up these labels like sponges. And some of them we will spend our entire lives trying to overcome, and others we will spend our entire lives trying to reject. Other labels we give ourselves based on our likes, our hobbies, our talents. I wasn't a dancer until I was a tween, and I labeled myself a dancer because I excelled at it. It was something that I was good at. And the whole point of accepting labels is that we want to be loved. We want love, we want validation, we want acceptance, we want connection. We need to feel significant. That's a human need. And, when we accept a label as a means to gain love and acceptance and validation, we are actually harming ourselves, because it's not that label that's giving you the love and connectedness and validation. It's you. It's who you are. I didn't need to be a dancer to have my family love me and be proud of me, but that was the way that I got them to show it. And so I just immersed myself in being a dancer because that was the quickest, easiest way. I mean, who doesn't feel loved when they have 2 rows of family with, waiting to give you flowers, and they're clapping and whooping and whistling at you? Of course you feel loved. But when that label, I'm sitting in the doctor's office and he's telling me, you're not a dancer anymore because you have arthritis. All of a sudden I got this panicky feeling like, oh my goodness, if I am not special because I was an exceptional dancer, am I still worthy of love? Is my family still going to love me and be proud of me? And, as an adult, you think, oh gosh, that's a ridiculous thing to think. Of course they are. You love your children unconditionally. But because I had held on to that label, I hadn't realized that yet. If I had shredded that label a long time ago, I would have been able to cultivate other ways to connect with my family that didn't involve dance.
That makes sense. But how do you do it? Because I can see, we all have things that we're good at. And, it may be something, we might not have a cheering section, but even the point of, some people I know are excellent housekeepers and they keep their house so clean. And how do you do those things well without taking it on as a label?
So one of the tools I use in my coaching practice is the theory of human needs psychology. I learned it from the Robbins Madonna Center, founded by, Tony Robbins, who's, world-renowned coach, and Chloe Madonis, who's a world-renowned psychologist. So, they know what they're talking about. But it's based on research that there are 6 human needs. They're certainty, variety, significance, love and connection, contribution, and growth. And the whole world over, first world or third world, you have those 6 human needs. Now, this theory says everything we do and believe, and for me, that includes the labels we accept as part of our identity, are in service to meeting one or more of those needs. If a label with its accompanying habits and system of beliefs meets 2 or 3 of those needs simultaneously, it becomes an addiction. And that could be a positive or a negative addiction. Labels can be positive or negative, but it's important to understand that all labels have the potential to limit our beliefs and close our minds to new possibilities for ourselves. An example of a positive addiction could be education, exercise, success, love, connectivity, meditation, reading, your hobbies. Those can be, by saying, those are the things I love to do, you're talking about an action. You're not talking about who you are. And that's the difference, is you don't have to label yourself a crafter to enjoy doing crafts. You don't have to label yourself a dancer to enjoy dancing. That's where it comes in.
Okay. And I can see how the difference would be very liberating, because just like in your example where you're sick and you can't dance anymore, or maybe you have a toddler and you can't scrapbook anymore because they'll mess everything up, you are still you, but because of life situations, what you're doing has to change. And that's okay, unless that's who you are. And then it can really kind of mess with you if you have identified, this is my identity, this is who I am, this is me. And then if you don't have that anymore, it could really shake your world.
You feel lost. Yeah, you feel so lost. And the thing that we I love a metaphor that I heard from the documentary The Secret. It's on Netflix, but it's talking about the law of attraction. But it spoke about life being like driving at night, that you can only see as far as your headlights shine, but you can drive across the whole country just being able to see 100 feet in front of you. You have to have faith that the next 100 feet will present itself as you travel. That's like our labels. If we shut off the process of evaluating our labels and altering them to direct our life path, we'll end up in the middle of nowhere instead of our desired destination. Living this way, this unlabeled life, it's a process that you repeat over and over. It's not just a state of being. You have to accept the idea that you are not a solid identity. We're constantly upgrading our phones, but we forget to upgrade our labels. How many times have you upgraded your phone in the last 10 years, But most people haven't even thought of upgrading their self-perception. What worked for us in our 20s isn't what we need in our 40s. But most people still follow the life plan they imagined in their youth, or they've deviated from that plan. And now subconsciously, or, sometimes even consciously and verbally, I'll hear this from my clients. They feel like they've failed because things didn't work out how I'd imagined. Well, that's not realistic to plan the next 50 years of your life based on the very limited life experience of, a college-aged student. How would 21-year-old me have any idea what 45-year-old me needs? I would have upgraded my phone a dozen times in that time period. Why wouldn't I upgrade my labels to meet my needs and direct my life the way that best meets those needs?
Yeah. So when we shed these labels, we have to kind of find another way to identify ourselves. And in your book, you say it needs to be by how we live and what we give.
Yeah.
Yes. So explain what that means to us.
So living, it's how we live and what we give life is about, living an unlabeled life is about being experience driven. The most important part of living an unlabeled life is understanding there's more than one right way to live. There are thousands of right ways to live, just like there are thousands of right ways to be a good mom. But you have to figure out which one is best for you. And even though it may not be how you were raised or the environment which you're very used to, it's right for you. It's having an open mind. And that means taking things into consideration without prejudice or bias. And we get prejudice or bias from labels. It's challenging your own opinions and raising your standards. Being unlabeled means you stop putting an emphasis on the facade of your identity, which, man, is so hard in this age of social media. And you need to focus on experiences and forming deep connections with people and really being present. Living an unlabeled life by how we live and what we give is, am I living presently? Am I living kindly? Am I living with focus? What we give is, I love the how Danes live. My sister served an ecclesiastical mission in Denmark for a couple years, and on that I did a lot of research about where she was going to be living in the Copenhagen area and how Danish people live, and they are very much about, and they're consistently rated as one of the happiest countries in the world. They're usually number one or number two. And the theory is that they have this idea of being cozy, where you can spend present time with yourself, with your family, with your friends, with your goals. But it's mostly about being present in the experience of it and not being distracted. And especially as Americans, and women and mothers, we have 500 tabs open in our brain all the time. And we forget to be present. We're sitting, I had to stop myself yesterday. I was sitting at a little musical that my 7-year-old son was in, and I was going through my daily schedule in my head instead of being present and watching him enjoy dancing around on stage. And I had to stop myself and say, you're not being present. You need to live in what you give. And right now you are giving your focus and support to your son. Be there.
So hard to do sometimes. Like you said, we have all these things going on in our minds. And, kids always want, whether you're watching them or they're just trying to talk to you, they want that attention right when you feel like you can't give it, right?
Oh,
and so you have to turn everything off right at that moment when you're just really deep in thought or just something, and then to turn your attention and shift your attention to what they're talking about, what they're doing, what they need can be very, very hard, but is so important for that connection piece that you talked about.
It is. And you also can't be afraid to set boundaries on your time. I think that's something that a lot of my clients that are women have a really hard time saying no because they were raised to be nice girls. You need to be nice. And that's a label that they have to shred because there's a difference between being a doormat and being polite. You can politely tell somebody no, or not right now, or I'm sorry, I don't, or not even I'm sorry, but I don't have time for that. But I will then, and I think that's like, I've had to take that into how I parent too, because I do want to be present for my kids. If they actually need my presence right then and there, I will drop what I'm doing and give it to them. If it's something that I feel can wait and that I would be able to give them more attention and presence in 20 minutes, I will say, right now I'm doing this. Can I spend time with you in 20 minutes? And, my kids will go, yeah, okay. I'm even setting a timer on my phone to give me 20 minutes to finish this project. And that time, my time is yours. My focus is yours.
Yeah. And I think that that's important to understand those boundaries and to not be afraid to do that. And that goes back to your point of, I'm nice, or we can do it the other way. I'm busy with work. I'm always busy. I'm work focused, or whatever the label might be. And then we lose out on that time with our kids. Or you can go really far the other way to where I'm always there for my kids, but you aren't getting the things done that you need to. And you need to find that balance of both. And I can see how the labels play into that, because with those labels, you don't allow yourself the freedom to do what's right in the moment.
Well, and that was part of my rock bottom story, was that I had taken on the label that I'm just going to live for my kids. I'm not happy, but they are what is important. So I am just going to live for my kids. And I completely lost myself. And just the immense stress of that was what, made my health deteriorate. And so many women are burning out because they are immersing themselves in other people. And you have to take care of yourself first. Get yourself in order so that you can give to other people. You can't truly love other people until you love yourself. You can't truly serve other people if you're empty. You have to be full to give to others. And that's, making sure that our labels that our minds are open, our labels aren't holding us back and altering our behavior in a negative way, and that we're choosing to live in balance and in moderation and things like, and so on. It's important. And the labels block that, because I heard a woman go, no, I absolutely disagree with that. I am a mother for the next 20 years. This is my calling. This is what God wants me to do. And I will give everything that I have to my children. I just don't agree. And I said, well, I understand wanting to do your absolute best for your family, because we all do. But do you think your children would be happier if they had a happy mother who was joyful in her life and full of energy and inspiration? And she stopped and she, realized that her kids were stressed because she was stressed. She had immersed herself so much in raising the perfect children and making sure that she was super mom that she was just overwhelmed in stress and had lost herself, and she wasn't happy, and it was making her children unhappy too. And so we had to strip off that label.
Yeah, I love your point about, self-care. That's something I talk about on the show and that I feel passionate about, that women definitely need to take care of themselves and have that, like you said, you can't give from an empty bucket. You have to take that time to replenish. In the last little bit of time we have left, I'd really love to talk about how. Now, how do we get rid of these labels? Is there a process? Ideally, someone could work with a life coach, right? And sit down and have them kind of point it out. But is there anything we can do on our own at kind of an introspection exercise to figure this out?
Yes. And it's in my book. I ask questions at the end of every chapter to kind of help guide people through the same process that I went through. Like, hey, this worked for me. You can try it too. See if it works for you. And the main process is just sit down and write down everything you believe about yourself. What are all the things in political, social, environmental, cultural, religious? Write down all of those labels and analyze, ask yourself where they came from. Ask yourself if they're serving you. Ask yourself, am I not experiencing as much as I could be in life because of these labels? Are you keeping yourself from going to a jazz concert because you were raised on a ranch and only like country music and that's who you are, and you may be missing out on a fun experience and a new experience because you don't even give it a consideration? Something as simple as that can suck the joy out of your life experience. But you have to shred every label one by one and be completely a blank slate for just a bit. And what I tell my clients to do is go through and analyze each of those labels, shred them, be your blank slate self for just a while. And for me, it took about an hour of just sitting in meditation and prayer. And then when I was ready to accept the answer, because you have to be ready to accept the newness of what is going to come up. But whether you're religious or not, you can ask the universe or you can ask God. For me, it was God. Who am I and who do I want to be? And because you have this beautiful, clean slate, you are going to have these words bubble up into your mind that are going to just blow your mind. They're the most profound things that will happen to you in your life because you have decided to start over and be your own person and come to that identity from a place that is centered and spiritual and thoughtful. And that's the person. That's who you really are. And your mind already knows it. You just have to ask the question.
Yeah. Now, as I'm hearing you talk, when you did this exercise, you were really in a bad place. And
yes,
I can see how, you would shed a lot more labels. If you're coming at this from a place where things are going pretty well and you're feeling pretty good, you would still get rid of the labels, of course, but you might keep a lot of the same actions. You might keep a lot of the same lifestyle because you're deliberately saying, this serves me. This works for me. Yes. I'm glad this is part of my life. Okay.
And you can also come at it from the perspective of, I'm expanding myself. I am reaching a little bit higher. I'm reaching a little bit further. I'm ready for more. There is always room for new experiences, for new ideas to improve on what you're already doing and to heal past wounds or get new ideas or whatever it is. This exercise, like I said, it's a process that you repeat over and over, because life is driving in car at the night and you can only see 100 yards in front of you with the lights on. You have to keep doing it in order to see what's next in your life and to be able to live the best version of your life with this open mind. And that's what I talk about with the freedom to be so open to new ideas, the clarity that you know exactly who you are. And because you're free and because you have this clear mind, you become so purpose driven. Things that don't matter seem to fall away. And you just live this beautiful, abundant life. It's not like that all the time. A lot of times it's, you screaming at your kids to hurry and get their shoes on so that you can get to school on time. That never goes away.
Right.
Life is life, but you just seem to live with more gratitude, more presence, more purpose when you live it unlabeled.
Oh, I love it. We will end there because that is a perfect place to end. I think that there's something here for everyone, whether you're in a really good spot in life or not. This kind of introspective exercise can really help you to just check in, to make sure that you're where you want to be and to, course correct where needed. So LeeAnne, thank you so much for being on the show and for teaching us. Yeah. And thanks everyone for listening to Moms Who Know. Thank you all so much for listening to this episode and being a part of Moms Who Know. I hope that you enjoyed that as much as I did. I wanted to let you know about some resources on the website. You're going to want to go to momswhoknowpodcast.com and go to free resources. I've recently added a brand new, it's a big list of activities to add to your morning routine. So if morning routine is something that you're working on, you'll want to go there. You'll see a few other resources there as well. So go check it out and we'll see you next week.